What's up, everybody? Here we are. It's another Thursday night. We're here going live here on YouTube on the onocoffee channel. And I'm onocoffee J, as you know. Anyway, so today is Thursday, April 29th, 2021. And we're doing this again as we do every week. We're doing coffee and cigars on a Thursday night for a couple hours. And we've got our live music here. Doing well. How are you guys all doing tonight? Where are you smoking? What are you drinking? Let me know. Put them down in the comments. I want to know. Looking interested to see what's going on. But what's happening? The world out here in Baltimore is hot. Well, it's not hot. It's humid. Like humid. That's the one thing about Baltimore. Baltimore is a humid kind of place, and it really, really is challenging when it's humid. There we go. Nice. So today it's been pretty, temperature-wise it's pretty mild, maybe like 80, 85, but the humidity's been really, really high, so it's like really tough to deal with. I don't know if you guys have that where you are, but it's, so like for example, Tuesday, perfect, just about 80, cool, breezy, lovely, perfect weather. Yesterday, pushing into the 90s, so getting kind of warm, but still calm. Today, back down a little bit to the 80s, but high humidity. Oh. So Baltimore's one of these places where it kind of gives you this like glimpse one day of beautiful weather and makes you think, wow, this could be the best place in the world to live. This could be great. And then it hits you. This is not the place for you. So here we are. We're here again doing coffee and cigars. And what are we doing today? So today we've got the Brazil Fazenda Morofeo Natural, which is a New York 2-3 type of coffee. And this is a coffee that I wanted to bring to the show because I wanted to give us a chance to try something a little bit different and out of the ordinary from what we normally drink. Like, I normally buy a lot of really high quality single origin coffees that are truly specialty, right? And so most of my buying and most of my time in coffee has been dealing in these types of coffees. These higher, I guess, quote unquote, higher echelon coffees. So the idea of buying premium coffees that are above the C market grade, but not quite specialty, has always been an area that I haven't dealt with. So every once in a while, I like to get some samples to just familiarize myself and get used to it and just to see what it's like, and generally just keeping my field of options and knowledge continuing. So what is a New York 2-3 coffee? So why is it called New York 2-3? So first of all, it's called New York because the seed market, the commodities market for coffee is based in New York City. Then it's called the 2-3 because it's looking for 2 to 3 defects in a 300-gram sample. That's the maximum. And now, so this particular coffee, this Fazenda Morofeo, is what's called a New York 2-3 screen 16. So what that means is that it has, it's a so each screen is a 64th of an inch, right? So 16 64ths, then there's 17 18, so 17 18 size beans, which are, so 17 18 size beans are smaller, so they should fit in the 16, no, the 16 beans will fit in the 16, but not the 17 18. So it's a way of looking for or determining size, as well as later they look at density for the New York 2-3. But this one is a nice coffee. It's a nice, what they call, it's a fine roast, strictly soft fine cup. Let me get the sample out here. So these are Brazil natural Arabica coffees. And natural process means that the coffees after they're picked are laid out in the sun to dry, and then they are mechanically processed. So what happens in Brazil is filled with like really large farms, right? And so because it's all very industrial agricultural approach there, they actually cultivate the trees in long lines so that they can use modified blueberry pickers that have these long fingers. And as they go through the row of coffee trees, it shakes the tree and knocks the ripe cherries off. Now, the problem with this type of approach is that it's knocking a lot of the cherries off. So coffee, as it grows and matures, it goes from green berries to yellow to orange to red to crimson, and then really, really deep blood red, which then moves towards spoiling, overripes. The machines, though, will go through and whatever they can knock loose, they take. So there's going to be a lot of the reds, of course, a lot of the crimson, some of the yellow, some of the orange, even some greens. So you're going to get a lot of different coffees that may or may not be really ripe. So that kind of lends to the quality level being affected. Also, let's say like in the places that we deal with, a lot of our producers, those trees are handpicked. So a tree will probably undergo on the average 7 pickings throughout the season because the pickers are only picking the fully ripe cherries off the trees. But by doing this industrial process, you can do a lot more. You can do thousands of hectares in a couple days, where you can only do hundreds of hectares in a couple days when you have manual labor. So it's a way of cutting costs. It's a way of doing large-scale agriculture. And Brazil is is the largest coffee producing nation in the world for Arabica coffee. Vietnam, I believe, is the best or the most volume for Robusta, but Brazil is leading with Arabica. And so this is the coffees. We've roasted it up. Give you a little scene here. This one I roasted a little bit on the darker side, so it's a lot more of a medium roast. A lot of times when you're roasting coffees for cupping, you're roasting a little bit lighter than this, typically to what we call just past the first crack. So as the coffee is in the roaster, you're heating it up and it's absorbing the heat right from the drum, and so it's going through this endothermic phase. So it's sucking in, absorbing the heat, and then it reaches a point of full saturation before it expands, becomes exothermic, expending off its heat, and then it cracks. So it basically looks like a popcorn, right? So popcorn, like you heat it up and it breaks. It's basically that. So once you reach a certain level of heat in a coffee bean, it expands and you hear this crack. So there's actually 2 cracks that you can get to, and so the first crack is the lighter side, and this particular roast is a little bit further than that, maybe about 20 seconds or so past the first crack, and then but lower than a medium. So it's closer to medium, but lower than a medium, which would be more like towards the second crack, right? All right. So what we're doing is we're taking this coffee, and typically in a cupping situation, we're going to put them in these type of cups, right? And this one's from the Consejo in El Salvador. They gave me a couple of these, very kind of them. And they're basically bowls where you're going to put an amount of coffee. So for example, we'll put in something like this size, we'll put 13 grams and of ground coffee, put the coffee in, and you'll take that coffee. So let's say, for example, if I put it in here, right, there's the coffee. You're going to smell it and get the aromatic notes. So this one has some earthiness, a little bit of like fruitiness, very earthy, very kind of woodsy, maybe a little bit of cedar. So from this point, after you smell that, you're going to add hot water, and the water is going to float the coffee. Some of the coffee will rise to the top and float, and then you'll smell it again to get the wet aromatics, and then you'll break it down. And what I mean by break it, you're going to take your cupping spoon, oh, sorry about that, and you're just going to, while inhaling, right, and that's going to give you aromatics that have been stuck underneath that floating cap of coffee, and then you're going to taste it after that. But this is kind of how we do it in critical tasting sessions when you're evaluating coffees for purchase. However, with the COVID, of course, that's not quite copacetic. Now some outsiders from the industry were already freaked out by doing this, because you'll share this amongst everybody around you. And now with COVID, of course, people are even more freaked. So there's this thing called the Rattleware Cupping Brewer, which is this thing. And the cupping brewer is made by a company called Rattleware, and it's supposed to give you the ability to have the cupping experience without actually doing the cupping, and something that's a little bit more consumer friendly to work with. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to take this funnel shaped glass vessel, and we'll take the coffee, we'll put it inside, and then we'll add hot water and then let it float. And then you'll just kind of take the same approach as you would for cupping. So we're going to go through that. I've already pre-ground the coffee. Let me move some things around here. So thanks for joining us today. How's everyone going today? We're looking over the Fazenda Morofeo Natural New York 2-3 Screen 16 Single Estate Arabica coffee, which is a premium grade coffee. And premium grade coffees can be used in a variety of situations, a lot of times for blenders, things that are going to, fill. It's kind of like fillers in some respects. And it's also a good way to save money in a blend. So if you spend a lot of money on some coffees and you kind of want to extend that, this way, and you want to extend that, you can then use something like this to fill and round out your blend. But we're just tasting this one straight, so we're going to put the coffee in here, right? Great. So for this particular brewing, we are using 24 grams of coffee to make a 12-ounce cup, because we always make 12-ounce cups on the show, so we're just going along with that. So we're going to just put that in here, as you can see, shake it around so it's nice and even. Then we're going to get our water. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Happy to answer any questions you might have. So we take our water. We're also going to time the brew, right? We're going to start the timer and time going up. So here we are. We're just saturating the coffee. We're letting it saturate and float. We're going to fill it up with 350 mils, which is right about to this RW. Oh yeah. So the timer's running. 25 seconds, all right. So while this is happening, this is the time to smell. It's very kind of like warm, earthy tones, wooden tones. Kind of a very neutral coffee in many respects. So as we get ready, we're going to be using our cupping spoon. And so this is a cupping spoon. This particular one is the really, really traditional type of cupping spoon. These are silver with a big bowl. And these type of spoons are coveted by a lot of the coffee people around the world. And there's a lot of people out there that have their own spoon, right? And they have their own spoon, and they, even when they're traveling, if they're traveling around to different parts of the world to do cuppings, they bring their spoon with them. I get it. People like to do that. I never personally really did it because I think it's a little bit crazy to do that. Like I have one I have more of one that's stainless, and this one's got a lot more of an angle, as you can see, right? This one's this one's flatter, where this one has this curve. I kind of like the curvy because it gives you can kind of stay away from the top or something like that. All right, we're still rolling. We are now at 1 minute 56 seconds. But really, most of the time, I use this, which is a standard, soup spoon. This is really what mainly I like to use because it's simple, it's ubiquitous, they're easy to find. You buy them at the restaurant store, you can buy them by the dozen, by the 2 dozen, and they're really quite inexpensive. So as you can see here, can you see it here? Is this strong enough? Oh, this is not so strong. Look at that. Oh, hang on. Let me go get that light. right. Okay, so this should work better. Yeah, that's brighter. Okay, as you can see here, you can see the coffee. It's a little bit cloudy, mainly because, you know, there's a lot of sediment that's falling, but you can see the cap, right? There's a cap just kind of hanging up there. That is part of the floating coffee, and what we're going to do at the 4-minute mark, which has been half a minute, we're going to break this cap, and underneath the cap are these aromatics that we're going to inhale and smell to get the idea of what kind of other aromatics this coffee may have. Almost there. All right. Yeah, there we go, 4 minutes. So now we're going to take our cupping spoon, right? And we're going to break this way, right? While inhaling. Now, typically in these type of cups, you'd be a lot closer, right? But here it's a little bit farther just because of the design. All right, interesting. Still more woodsy, that kind of neutrality. As you can see here with the light, it's become thick again because a lot of those extra sediment, or a lot of those extra ground coffees is falling. So it's actually clouding the coffee. That will clear as we wait. So typically when you're cupping coffees, you're going to let the initial steep for 4 minutes, do your break, and then you're kind of going to wait till almost 10 minutes before you actually start tasting. This will allow us to clean the coffee, it allows the coffee to settle, and it also allows the coffee to cool, which is really probably the more important part, because when the coffee is this hot, it does occlude your palate, so it's harder to taste the different nuances of the coffee. And yeah, well, what good is if you can't taste the flavors of the coffee and you're trying to critically grade the coffee, it doesn't quite serve you the idea to do it so early. So you wait kind of 10 minutes, and then it falls, it's cool enough, and then you can taste and really get a better sense of what the coffee is and give it a more accurate evaluation. But in the meantime, we're going to clean out the coffee, and what that means is that at the very top here, there's still a bunch of floating green coffee beans, and other muck, let's say, and we're going to clean that off. Now here's the thing, like maybe you can see it a little bit in the video, but there is a lot of stuff floating, a lot of grounds that are floating. Sometimes it's easier to get it, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's always stuff floating. It just depends. Sometimes you get coffee stuck in your teeth. Well, that's kind of how it goes. All right, that's pretty good. So in a typical cupping, we will actually have a glass that has hot, clean water in it that we're going to use to dip the spoon between tastes. And that's just to clean off the spoon so that it's fresh for your palate. So basically, in a typical cupping, we'll take our spoon, right? Whether you're using a cupping spoon or just a nice simple soup spoon. And then you'll take a little sample like this. We're not waiting. It's only now, what is it now? It's 7.5 minutes. We're not going to wait till the full 10 because, you know, we'll just pretend. Don't worry, I'm a professional. And and you slurp. See, there's some coffee left in the spoon. So we'll take a little sample again, just from like this, and then slurp. And what you're trying to do by slurping is you're trying to spread the coffee across your palate, across the cavity of your mouth, aerating the coffee along the way, kind of like a spray gun, to help make the coffee alive, I guess is the best way to put it. So Now also, when you do this professionally, you go different cuppings, you'll find all kinds of people doing this, and you'll hear all kinds of slurping noises. You'll hear, because some guys have this really high, like almost like a whistle, like and the weird thing about coffee people is that they like to do that. They will practice. They will sit around for weeks, months, years, practicing the ideal way in their mind to sound when they're slurping coffee. Me, I don't do any of that. I think that's a little bit affected. I just like to do straight, there's some. Floating coffee is not so quite enjoyable. So you'll typically slosh it around, and so in a cupping setting, especially when you're doing multiple samples of multiple coffees, the more critical the coffee, the more critical the cupping, the more samples of each coffee you'll have. So typically in a truly critical cupping, you're going to have 5 samples of each coffee. And the reason you have 5 samples is because you want to see if there's any kind of anomalies across 5 samples. And if there are, that will help you to determine whether or not those anomalies are maybe just a one-off and very, nothing to worry so much about, or if there's anomalies across the sample numbers, then maybe there's something more seriously wrong with the coffee. But what you do is that typically after you've slurped, maybe sloshed around your palate a bit, picked out these pieces of coffee that are, and then what you'll do is actually expectorate. Well, you could swallow it. You could swallow that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing verboten about that. However, if you're doing like multiple coffees and multiple stems of coffees, I mean, you get really start to feel messed up after you drink, literally hundreds of samples. Like I remember one of my first cuppings, one of my first true critical cuppings was in 2007. I was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I was asked to cup the Taste of Harvest there. 75 samples, 5 samples of each coffee. So that was, let's see, what is that? The solar calculator does not work with the unofficial lighting. Let's see here, 75 times, goodness, 75 times 5. So that's 375 samples of coffee. So at least 375 sips of coffee. And you don't want to swallow that much coffee. And I didn't, and that's the crazy thing. But even when you're just tasting it, and you're still expectorating it, there's still absorption of the caffeine. So man, after a day, after that session, you really feel it. Like you feel kind of worked. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we're going to continue on with this. So that's just a little bit about how we cup coffee. I thought you guys might find that somewhat interesting. But for this coffee, but for this one, we're going to use the Rattleware brewer. So the idea behind this Rattleware is that the coffee has hopefully all fallen down into the lower part of the V here and contained all of the grounds. Now that's not going to be perfect. There's still going to be some floating around. Then we use this plunger to separate the 2 segments, right? So we're just going to kind of let that float down like this. Now the problem with this little plunger is that it's not quite, it doesn't fit snugly. It's just there to fit and prevent intermixing. So you kind of have to hold it as you pour. So if I'm going to pour this, I have to hold this here and then give it a pour. Otherwise, those other grinds will escape and you just won't have a very unnecessarily pleasant coffee drinking experience. All right. There it is. The Brazil Fazenda Morofeo Natural New York 2.3, screen 16. Soft. It's a soft coffee, neutral. You know, it's a nice cup of coffee. It's what I would say is. Let's put some light on it so you can see what it's like from the. Oh, there we go. So it's a nice, fine, soft cup of coffee. It's not terribly, like, even though it's a natural process and you kind of think natural process will have more fruity notes, it doesn't really have a lot of fruity notes. It's a very smooth, what we call a soft and fine cup. You know, relatively, somewhat bit of woodsiness, just general coffeeness. Not really anything dramatic, but nothing terrible. Like, it's not like you taste things and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just disgusting. It's not like that at all. It's very smooth, it's very soft, it's very neutral. Which is why these are great coffees to use as blenders in different types of like mixes, or you know, mix it with the blends. And yeah, so let's see how it goes with our cigar of the day. Let me pull that out here too. So again, we're going to be getting our cigar. And today's cigar, of course, comes from Tobacco Leaf. We picked these up, and this is a continuation of the series of Amplify Black Voices from Tobacco Leaf. They put this out. I'm not sure if they still have some more out now, but basically the idea was that you would buy this gift pack, and it's the sample pack, and it's these 5 cigars for $60, and you smoke them all, and you vote for your favorite one. And I guess at some point, Rahul, if whoever gets the most votes of these 5, they will bring that in to the shop as part of their. Doesn't want to focus. Whatever. Anyway, we're coming down to our last 2 cigars. So this week's cigar is the Emperor's Cut Natural Pleasure Gran Robusto. So this is a cigar that is that first came out. Well, let's rewind a little bit. So Emperor's Cut is a company based out of Houston, Texas, that started back in that came up in 2018 with 7 different partners, friends, who decided to get together and do a cigar company. So this particular cigar is made in Cordega, Nicaragua, by what's a company called Agroindustrial Nicaragüense de Tabacos. And it's a guy named Omar Otez, and he owns this place, and they made this line of cigars for them. They have a second line that came out in September called the Jazz Series, and I believe that was made in the Dominican Republic. But when you're looking at the Gran Robusto, the Natural Pleasure, there we are, Natural Pleasure, Emperor's Cut. It's a nice looking wrapper, I think. You know, look at it. It's got a pretty look to it. Slightly veiny, but nothing really to be too concerned about, I don't think. Nice looking band too, right? Emperor's Cut. So the MSRP on this is $11.20, and you can get a box of 20 for $215. And Emperor's Cut is you can get them at different shops around the area as well as on their own website. They have a website here. Let me pull that up so you guys can see it. It's always a long thing to get to the actual thing. There we are. Okay, so this is the Emperor's Cut. This is their website. These are the 7 friends who partnered up to start the site. And so we're actually going to be smoking the Natural Pleasure. Let's pull that up here. Natural Pleasure. Where are you? There we are. Gran Robusto Natural Pleasure. And I think the interesting thing is that the name Natural Pleasure. when I think of natural pleasure, I'm certainly not thinking of any. Innocent thoughts don't come to mind. Of course, your mileage may vary. All right, so we're going to give it a cut with the MTX cutter. All right. So here we have a look. Oh, let's put that away. So here we cut the cigar. It's going to show us. The hard part is that it always wants to focus on my face. Does it want to do what I want? There we go. Just got to cover more of the face while I'm at it. This is just cut. There we go. I gotta get the right distance. I changed the angle. I don't know if you noticed, but I changed the angle of the camera today. It's slightly higher than it normally is. I'm trying a new positioning. Hope it looks all right. All right, so that's it's a pretty good cut, right? So it's pretty straight. I'm gonna smell. There's a light. There's that barnyard manure. It's lighter than on other cigars, but that's what I'm sensing here on the wrapper. It sounds nice. I mean, it smells quite nice. Let's do some cold drawing. You know, there's a little bit of sweetness on the tongue as I'm doing the cold draw. A little bit of sweetness. And Inting's asking, what's the blend for the cigar? Oh, good idea. Good question. Hey, Inting, how are you? How's things in Jersey? So, this one, they don't really give too much information, but it's a Colorado Claro wrapper, right? Come on. There we go. Colorado Claro wrapper with Ecuadorian binder and Nicaraguan fillers. So again, it's a little bit light on descriptions. That's always a little bit disappointing. I always wish they would give more detail. Like, you can give detail without necessarily giving away, like, what secret can you possibly take away from talking about your cigar? So we're gonna get, ooh, look at these. Tobacco leaf matches that are black. Is that a stylish thing, or is this an Amplify Black Voices thing? I don't know. All right, so let's light. If you're hearing a little bit more noise, I've got a bunch of fans in here because since it's humid, I'm trying to keep it a little bit cool. It doesn't stay very well lit. Forget it. Let's go back to it later. Now, there's a little bit of acridity on the palate during the light. Maybe not so pleasant. But let's see if that's just for the beginning. Yeah, it's a little bit of bitterness. I got a bitterness on the smoke starting out. And it feels, the cigar itself feels like it's still in good condition. I mean, I am keeping it with Boveda packs. Like, for example, even though it's been in this bag the entire time, this is the actual bag that it was sold in. I did keep it with these Humidipacks. This Boveda 69 and this Humidipack. And they're still very wet and pliable. So I imagine the hydration should be fine. just a little bit, maybe it's just a little bit, that kind of bitterness, like you think that it was kind of maybe on the dry side. I feel like it's a little bit hard to draw, or not necessarily to draw, but to get the smoke on the palate. Maybe it's coming alive now. Okay, it's definitely the smoke is definitely on the maybe more fuller bodied, medium to full, definitely on the fuller side. It's got more of a punchiness to it. Let's have a little bit of that coffee. Ooh, I don't know if that goes well. Oh no. All right, so there are, the original release for the Natural Pleasure was a Toro back in 2018. And then last February 2020, they released 3 more editions. One of them was this Gran Robusto. There was also a Robusto at 5x50, and then what they call a shorty, 4x56. So kind of like this real stubby but thick cigar. And you know, one of the things I've been noting while we've been reviewing these Amplified Black Voices cigars is the general lack of representation in cigar media, especially mainstream cigar media. And this one is an interesting, not necessarily anomaly, but it's got an interesting aberration in that if we look through, did I say this here? Yes, I'm going to show you. So as we look through here, this is the, if we put in Emperor's Cut Natural Pleasure Gran Robusto, as you can see I did in the Google search, we're going to see the first one. There's emperorscut.com, Neptune Cigar, Privada Cigar Club, they're all selling them. There's our show, we're in the listing, excellent. Then we see, like, here's one thing, at halfwheel.com, Emperor's Cut launches 3 new sizes of Natural Pleasure. Okay, that's nice. Cigar Coupe, Emperor's Cut adds 3 new sizes. Developing palates, Emperor's Cut Pleasure gains 3 new sizes. So and then let's go to the next page. Blind Man's Puff, Emperor's Cut announces Jazz Series. Slow burn. So you've got these well-known, oh here, Cigar Dojo down here at the bottom. Jazz Series from Emperor's Cut cigars announced. So you've got these well-known mainstream cigar media that are taking some note of, I guess what they're doing is they're giving press releases and they're taking note, they're putting them on their websites. But when you look deeper into these websites, there's no reviews. We're not talking about, and I have to ask why. Like, we're not talking about a cigar company that they don't know about now. Like the other ones, maybe they just didn't know about. Okay, let's give the media things that benefited out. Like, they're not doing any research, they're not really going out there, so they're just kind of waiting for people to send them press releases to let them know who's out there and what they're doing. And so obviously Emperor's Cut has sent them press releases to say, hey, we're releasing this, you know, Natural Pleasure. It's 2018, here's our Natural Pleasure. 2020, here comes, early 2020, here's our 3 line extensions to this Natural Pleasure. And then later in the year, in September, here's our Jazz Series. Now, these are the mainstream guys. How come there's no, and we're talking like a year later. They didn't have time to review. They didn't get any. I mean, like, you know, these, a lot of them will say, will love to tout the fact that they spend their own money on their cigars. Okay, great. Like that, like that's what I do here. It's like, we buy the cigars so that we can say whatever we want about them. And these are, you know, these are people that, these are like media outlets that say we buy our cigars or whatever. It's not like they can't go to like Emperor's Cut's website and not buy them. Like, they've got them online. You can buy them directly from Emperor's Cut, or you can find a local somebody somewhere. I mean, like, if you just like we can see on the website, on just the search, there's already a number of sites where you can buy it. So why is there a lack of reviews on this cigar, on this line of cigars? That's an interesting thing to consider. Also, another thing that I thought was really interesting is that as I'm researching these cigars, right? Let's bring that back here. How do we do that? Oh, that didn't work. There we go. Okay, so look at this. So we've got this thing, Slow Burn Mobile Cigar Lounge. You know, Camera Avenue. What I thought was really interesting is this search popped up. What else did it do? That was I guess that was it. There was some sites, and Slow Burn is actually a lounge that used to be here in Baltimore. So it kind of, as you're doing some searches on these alternative brands, they actually give you the results actually give you some alternative sources as well, or alternative websites that, you know, that would never have come up with other brands, right? So I think that's an interesting. I think that's interesting. So here we are. We're burning. I've been smoking relatively steadily, but let's go back here. It's burning a little bit uneven. Right? Look at that. Now, so far there's been a bitterness, a general bitterness, a slight acridity, you know, an acrid taste that really hasn't dissipated. So, let's see, we'll continue on. So a little bit more about this. So, like I said, they started this company, this cigar brand, in 2018 with 7 partners. And I was reading through a magazine called blackenterprise.com, did an article on them. And by last year, January 2020, before the COVID hit, they were actually planning to have 30% of the revenue being driven from online sales via their website. Of course, as we all know, the pandemic happened and everybody stayed home, and so all of their, you know, in-person sales dried up, and they were forced to revamp their website and push harder on social media to compensate for that, like many people did, or many companies. And so far, it looks like they sold about 50,000 cigars in 2020, which with revenues of 250,000, which is up from 175,000 in 2019. And their first year, they only did 75,000. So they're a growing company, making more cigars, selling more cigars. But it's still a small, I mean, like, let's be honest, $250,000 is small potatoes in a $9.4 billion cigar market. So they're still a small company trying to make it happen. They're represented, from what I was reading, in 19 states with 95 retail and lounges that you can purchase their cigars in. And then they also, so the interesting thing is that, you know, as you know, this is a black-owned cigar brand. And, you know, what am I trying to say here? You know, so as you, I don't know, depending on where you are in the country watching this or in the world, at least especially here in Maryland, I see this because there's been a burgeoning African-American cigar smoking population that's just been growing at a really rapid rate. And, you know, the interesting thing is that the African-American community, there's a lot of women who are joining into the cigar thing, much more so than in other communities that I've seen. There's a lot of black women that are out there smoking cigars, opening their own lounges. It's really kind of an interesting and exciting turn of events here in the cigar industry. So these 7 friends decided to, you know, capitalize on that and serve that market. And so they've really focused with physical sales presences in certain markets that have a lot of, like, African-American cigar smoking populations. So places like Atlanta, Miami, Florida, Houston, Washington, D.C., you know, so Baltimore, Washington there's a very strong presence of that here. There's a lot of cigar lounges that have opened that are really catering to the black community of cigar smokers. Norfolk, Virginia, I guess, also has a big one. So from what there was a report in 2017 by the Society for Research on Nicotine and Tobacco that showed that black Americans were 5.3% of the premium cigar market. So there's a pretty sizable percentage of smokers that are African American in premium cigars. So I think that's an interesting thing. So here, according to their website, they say that this particular cigar is a medium to full-bodied cigar with complex dose of coffee, leather, and aromatic spice. That's appealing to both novice cigar smokers that are developing their palate and seasons, as well as seasoned cigar smokers of discriminating taste. Now, this one so far, like we're still in the first third, right? And nice white ash. Look at that. That's actually kind of pretty. But I'm still getting a lot of acrid notes that are just kind of harsh on the tongue. You know, I hate to say it, but not necessarily pleasurable, notes on the tongue. Now, I did find a review from February 2019 from a website called Robusto that let me pull that up for you so you can see it as well. And so here's their review. This I think is of the Toro because of the year, and as you can see, it still has a pretty dark. Actually, that's just a picture, but the wrapper is darker. But so in his review, he's talking about how the wrapper of the cigar has a leathery Snickers bar colored wrapper. This guy thought it was really well rolled, really beautiful looking cigar. The cold draw had a woody pencil shaving, slight brown sugar kind of cold draw. And I think I kind of got that. There's that little bit of like sweetness I said that was on the tongue. And maybe I guess we could say woody pencil shaving. I mean, it was woody. But then the first third, he's noting, brown sugar, black pepper, earthy and woodsy. And the retrohale, he's getting cedar, vanilla, cinnamon, and brown sugar. But so far, unfortunately, I'm not really getting any of those. Nah. Maybe some kind of, like, maybe the acridity could be like a black pepper. But I think it's smoothening out now. I mean, the acridity is kind of mellowing out. Oh my. The palate's a little bit dry. So what's been going on, everybody? How's life out there? Like I said, it's been a little bit humid today, so we've been enjoying nicer weather, but today's weather's been a little bit humid. It also rained pretty hard, so I guess that's a good thing. We haven't had too much rain this last few weeks. We're smoking tonight the Emperor's Cut Gran Robusto from their Natural Pleasures line, and drinking the Fazenda Morofeo natural process from Brazil. Now, like I said, so far on this so far on the, we're finishing, we're coming to the end of the first third. And while some other reviewers have said that they got brown sugar, black pepper, earthy, and woodsy notes, unfortunately this has been mostly kind of a strong and a little bit, and quite acrid, bitter beginning. So unfortunately, it's been a bit of an auspicious beginning. But luckily, in the last few moments, the acidity that was really kind of present during the first part of the first third has mellowed out. So it's not quite that harsh at the moment. I'm hoping that it's going to evolution and really come alive with some of the other notes that are in the reviews that I've read. So if you're smoking a cigar or having a drink, let me know what you're doing. Where are you having it? Drop those in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Or if you have any questions about the cigar or about coffee, let me know as well. I know in the schedule, some of the schedules, it said that we were doing a tasting today with Aganorsa Leafs representative Michael King. Unfortunately, Michael had a conflict. Turns out he had a conflict with one of his vendors. He was supposed to do an event, and he was actually called me a couple weeks ago. He was like, "Hey, turns out I have this thing," and I was like, "I can ask the owner if I can do the live stream." I said, "You know what? Why don't you just do the event, and then let's move it to the 6th, so you can give the full attention to everything that's going on." And he agreed to do that. So we're going to be doing our Aganorsa tasting next week, May 6th. So be sure to call Rahul at Tobacco Leaf in Jessup and get the pack. It's going to have the Rare Leaf Reserve Robusto, as well as 2 smoking vitolas to taste the different leaves that are used in Aganorsa Leaf's blending. So it's a great way to explore cigars on a deeper level. All right, now that we're moving into the second third now, we're starting to get more of a acidic, citrusy note on the tongue. So it's changing. It's definitely changed. The acidity is gone, and now it's being replaced by citric notes. So kind of a minerality would be, and it's getting a little bit, the shape is getting a little bit kind of crazy. Look at that. So it's kind of droopy, right? Look at that. It's kind of bendy. So I'm going to drop that out just so it doesn't fall everywhere. But here's you see the cherry? There we go, the cherries. The problem there is it's kind of suddenly become very difficult. And also it's starting to get, unfortunately, it's starting to get a little bit hot right here in the center. You can see where it's kind of smoky there. Could these be sensations of tunneling? So, well, a moment ago we were having citrusy, acidic notes on the tongue. Now it's getting the heat. After I tapped off the ash, the heat has intensified. The heat is intensified and it's become harder to get smoke on the palate. Actually, suddenly it's become very difficult to smoke. So I had to hit it, but now there's definitely heat on the tongue. I think we've recovered. Seems like there's, I guess it focuses it. So seems like it's as you can see here, it's kind of like maybe dead right here, and more burning in this part. Definitely a hot burn right now. So I'm going to hit it with a little bit here, try to even the heat, the burn out. That seems to have helped. But it's definitely on the hot side now. Makes you kind of want to maybe wait a few moments, try to let this thing cool down, let it settle, see if it'll settle out and like become smooth again. But I'm also kind of worried that the longer you wait, the more it'll go out. Like that. This thing suddenly is not cooperating. So I've taken off the band just to give more room to work with it and to get a better feel for it. Like right here, like where my fingers are, right there. Man, it is hot. It is hot right there. Like, man, it's like almost too hot to hold. So it must have some kind of tunneling going on in this cigar. Now, of course, as we all know from smoking cigars, like, they're a natural product, a handmade product, so there's going to be some anomaly and variation between each cigar. So one cigar can't necessarily be indicative that there's really a problem with the line. But it certainly is a bit disappointing. Like now I can't get any smoke at all. All right, so we're going to do the Cirillo McLean approach to relighting the cigar. We're going to go around the edge, around the outside, around the outside. See if we can get this thing back up to speed again. Man, we are really struggling with this thing. Okay, we're back up. Maybe it's smoothened out. Maybe right here. It's still pretty hot right there where I'm holding it. Oh, that's really, ooh. Man, I'm just waiting for it to burn through. So it's backlit again, so it is now getting nice smoke. As you can see here with the ash, right? Now we're getting white ash. We're getting white ash. As you can see, it's really kind of gray at that tip that we basically was fighting this whole time right here. It was fighting this whole gray part. Now we're back to white, so I think it's burning. Hopefully that means it's going to burn smoothly now. I'm still fighting. Like in that moment that I was just showing you and talking, it kind of died down again, and I had to puff on it harder to get the smoke level back up. But now it's also increased the heat on my tongue, so my tongue is a little bit now heated. Ooh, a bit itchy. That is burning hot, for sure. For sure that's burning hot now. My tongue is kind of burning. And I hate to say this, but this is one of those times when, like, you kind of have to ask yourself, the cigar's not performing very well. It's kind of burning. You got really kind of burnt tongue. It's super hot, like right here. It's blazing. One of my fingers are holding, it's blazing right there. Like you kind of want to spritz it with water to cool it down. Hey, you're just struggling with this. Now I'm really just fighting with the cigar. So this is one of those times when you kind of ask yourself, you know, like if you were to talk to George Brightman would be telling me that, oh, you need to drop it now. Put it down, start another one. Life is too short to smoke, to stroll with a cigar. But since this is our cigar of the week, we're gonna battle through it. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is really... All right, maybe we'll wait. We'll wait a couple minutes. Maybe let this die down. Maybe let it die out completely, and then relight. All right, let's wait. So what's going on in the world? What's happening? Let's see what else is happening out there. So this week I was listening to our local NPR station, a place called WYPR, and was it yesterday? Yesterday I think it was. The announcer was like, so right now the Yankees, the New York Yankees, the team that evidently sucks this year, is in town playing the Orioles. And I guess they're playing a 4-game streak, or a 4-game series, right? Or maybe more. I know we're down in day 4, I think. So the first two games, the Orioles beat the Yankees, and then the third game, the Yankees beat the Orioles. And so, what I think is really interesting is that, the Orioles have been Baltimore Orioles fans are very optimistic. Like my cousin is really a big Orioles fan, and every year he tells me at the beginning of this, before the season begins, this is going to be the year. He's watched the stats, he's seen who they recruited, and he's like, we're gonna go this year. And every year I listen to him and I'm like, this guy's dreaming. We just don't seem to have it, right? I don't think the ownership has the interest in being, more than what they are, right? I think the owners actually, they make all their money off of this local sports network station that they run, and so they don't really worry too much about whether the Orioles are going to go to the World Series or not. Much to the chagrin of the entire city of Baltimore. So finally, with YPR, the announcer was like, well, the Orioles, the Yankees ended the Orioles' 2-game winning streak. And I was like, 2-game winning streak? At what time in our life, at what point in the history of our nation, or in the history of the English language, has 2 victories become a winning streak? I just thought that the level of optimism of Orioles fans is always surprising to me. It's like 2 games, we're in a winning streak. But evidently, so we lost the 3rd game, but we did win the 4th game. Maybe we're starting a 1-game winning streak. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm a little bit disappointed with the Orioles because, we haven't had a World Series run since, 1983, when I was in 8th grade. That's a long time. All right, so here we are. We've been waiting. And the cigar has calmed down. Like, if I was holding here a few moments ago, like super hot right here, that's cooled down considerably. I'm thinking maybe the cigar has gone out, which is kind of what, it's slightly burning. We're gonna let it try to let it wait a few more moments and let it die out and then relight. Now what I'm gonna remember not to do is I'm gonna remember not to get rid of this ash cap, right? A lot of times when you're like relighting your cigar, you'll tap the ash out and then you'll have this kind of cavern, that burnt cavern, and then you'll use a torch like this to shoot down the cavern and the cave and like relight it, and then bits of lit tobacco are flying everywhere and ashes everywhere, and it's getting on your clothes and burning holes in your pants, and it's really unfun. So Cirillo, on the show that he was on back in October, he showed that ring lighting, and that seems to work really well. So we're going to wait for this to die down and then give that a try. So what else happening in the world today? So we've got 2 deputies dead and 3 others in North Carolina. There was a 13-hour standoff. Basically, this guy didn't turn into work, and people were worried about him. He's got some mental problems or something. So they sent 2 deputies to the house. He shot them both and shot a bunch of other people, and they had like this whole standoff. Craziness down there in North Carolina. Almost to the point you'd think they were in Florida. And the FBI or someone raided Rudy Giuliani's apartment in New York City over the whole, I think it's part of the whole terrorist attack on the Congress back in January. Evidently, former President Trump is very upset that they raided Giuliani's apartment. Although, you know, what they say is like, you know, if you didn't do anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about, right? So if you didn't do anything wrong, no big deal. As long as you're in the right, as long as you're not breaking the law, you should be fine. All right, so we're going to relight now. I think that's, yeah. Cigar seems to be totally out. Let's hit it with a torch. Losing control. So, now I'm kind of at the edge of like actually sucking in the smoke and like choking on it. All right, I'm tapping it off the edge. We haven't had a cigar performing this difficult since the Rocky Patel Mariva. So trying to get it back to lit. So we're trying to get it lit up again. So if you're just tuning in, they were smoking the Emperor's Cut Natural Pleasure Gran Robusto, and we've had some problems with it through the entire cigar. It started off really acrid, bitter, and so the first third was acrid and bitter. So as you're moving the second third, the acridity went away, and then we started getting more citrusy notes, kind of more sparkling on the palate, and then suddenly it just got real super hot, and then like just started dying and like all kinds of problems. Okay, that acidity is coming back. And I'm getting this sensation on my tongue that I get usually when I smoke pipes. This kind of like English tobacco kind of sensation on the tongue. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Now, something else that I read on one of the reviews, I think it was here on this iRobusto review, the reviewer noted that there can be tar buildup on the end of the cap. So what they do is, as he gets towards later in the cigar, he cuts off the cap to get rid of the tar buildup. So we're going to try that since we've had some troubles. That was not an even cut. Cut that a little bit poorly. And the cigar is just kind of dying out again. I'm definitely getting a lot more, you know, it's let me get some water here to help clear the palate. All right. So we're kind of trying to get through the second third. And it's been such a battle to get through this. This is just difficult. I'm gonna push out a little bit of that ash, see if I can get more burn. I mean, I'm just not getting enough burn, not getting any kind of flavor, just battle. This is just a battle. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched that show, Game of Thrones. That one season where Jon Snow is like, has that battle, what do they call it, Battle of the Bulge? Not Battle of the Bulge, but the battle where he's like, is that epic battle where they're fighting over dead bodies, and you know, and then finally they had to get Sansa to bring, you know, whatever, her aunt's former army with Littlefinger to come and save them. This is what that's like. This is just a battle. It's just a battle now. I just feel like I'm inhaling too much smoke as I'm trying to just keep the cigar alive, you know. I mean, so it's a little bit tight right here where my thumb is. Well, evidently, the United States is no longer the top country in COVID deaths. We now have 142 million vaccinated in this country out of 350 million people. So we're what, at like 43% or something like that of Americans have been vaccinated. So that's a good thing. However, the rest of the country, they don't want to get vaccinated, or they're reticent to get vaccinated. So they're saying that there could be more resurgence, and especially as India's battling it, we could have more problems. So the interesting thing, India has 129, so we've got 142 million people vaccinated. India has 129 million people vaccinated. Problem with India is that they have 1.4 billion people. So that 129, which is almost half of our nation, is still only 8% of their population. That is just craziness. And this is a country, India, that produces the most vaccinations for the world. They produce, evidently they're producing so much vaccine and sending it to the world that they're probably on the verge of like not sending them anymore. Like they're kind of thinking, okay, we're not going to send any more vaccines because we need to vaccine our own people, which means that other countries that haven't got the vaccine are not going to get it, and so it's going to get worse. And as the pandemic spreads across India, they're going to get more variants that could become difficult for our vaccines to cover. So if they make it here, who knows what's happening? Starting to come alive, and kind of pleasant. So they're saying that at the rate they're going, they need to vaccinate in India 10 million people a day, just so that they can get their people, all their adults vaccinated within 6 months. And this pandemic is never going to end. It's going to like go on until 2022, at the rate we're going. So interesting enough, I was reading something that said a lot of the rest of the world has the AstraZeneca vaccine. And actually, AstraZeneca vaccine is being produced here in Baltimore. And evidently, the Baltimore plant had some problems. But I guess what they're producing here is being sent out to the rest of the world, to Europe. Well, one of my friends who was just in Italy this past week, he was telling me, I just saw him this morning, we're talking, he's like, yeah, I was just in Italy, and like, man, people there are still under lockdown. Like, they've got it pretty severe. Like, you really can't go anywhere. Like, and even if you're driving around, by yourself, you have to wear the mask, and like the carabinieri are like watching you. Like if they see you driving by without a mask, they're gonna pull you over. It's pretty crazy. And then evidently on the news they said that we had a, what do they call it? They had it was called a directed energy attack in Washington D.C. So evidently in November, at the Ellipse, that park that's south of the White House, there was a directed energy attack, which is what they call the Havana Syndrome. So basically, if you remember a couple of years ago in Havana at the U.S. Embassy, people started getting ill from some kind of energy force that was being directed at them. Now people think it could be Russia, it could be something like that, but evidently that might have happened again in November in Washington, D.C. And have you been following the, what was it, SpaceX launched all of their, another round of satellites last night. They sent up a rocket, and they're what's the they're building this. They're building a constellation of satellites to encircle the Earth for communications. I think for Wi-Fi, and I think it's supposed to be like 600 of them, or some crazy amount of them. So Musk is putting up these satellites, and he's putting them like at 500 kilometers, whereas and I didn't realize this, but a geostationary. We always talk about geostationary satellites, right? That they're in a position where they're just at one point above the Earth as the Earth rotates. So evidently geostationary is 36,000 kilometers away. These are at 500, so they're like super close. What does that mean? I'm not sure. Maybe your 5G is going to work better. So the 5G nanoprobes that are in your vaccine will come alive once Elon decides that it's time. Also, Elon was goading, what's his name? Jeff Bezos recently, because NASA gave SpaceX the contract to launch more astronauts. And so Jeff Bezos was kind of pissed off. He finally opened up his Blue Origin. So Blue Origin is this space program that Bezos is launching, and he's going to send people into space, and the website is up. So if you want to get on to Blue Origin, if you have enough cash, you can sign up now on their website, blueorigin.com. And in related news, what is it called? The Ingenuity helicopter that's on Mars. So they've done 3 flights. So basically Ingenuity is flying up to 16 feet and then flying out 276 feet, landing, doing some pictures, and coming back. So they've done 3 flights. They tried to do a 4th flight, but for some reason the helicopter would not take off. I don't know why. But NASA's optimistic that that's just a minor step back. But I was thinking about this. You know, we think about, let's say we think about drones. Let's think about drones, right? We take a drone, we take the controller, we fly the drone, right? We're looking at it, we're flying it. Okay, we see it, we're making video, great. But Mars is far away, right? It takes months to fly there. So it takes minutes to send commands and receive responses. So these guys at NASA are flying this helicopter on Mars with like a 20-minute delay. So I mean, that's kind of impressive. Like, all right, so I'm gonna fly this helicopter, but I'm gonna tell the helicopter to take off and fly and watch the video, but it's gonna be 20 minutes later. So you've got to kind of fly blind, right? Is that right? You got to fly blind and then land it and bring it back, and then hope to God that it actually worked, because you're like, well, I don't know if it really worked, but I would love to talk to one of those guys about that and see really what that's like. Another guy in the military said that the Russian army, or the Russian military, is an existential threat to the United States, so we need to maybe restart the Cold War again. Another military news, the drawdown of American troops in Afghanistan has begun. And the target for removing all of our troops from Afghanistan is scheduled for September 11th, 2021. So in the next 6 months, they're going to take everybody out. It's only taken us 22 years. How many generations of soldiers? I mean, I guess we have soldiers now that are in Afghanistan that were born after 9/11. You know, when you're our age, you know, Gen X, it's kind of hard to imagine that. Like, oh, these guys are fighting, but they were not even alive when the towers fell. All right, so the cigar now, after we battled through the second third, now we're in the third third. It's actually kind of come alive again. It's now I'm getting some notes of cedar and maybe some white pepper, some minerality. It's actually kind of pleasant. But man, that second third, I almost put it down. If we weren't smoking this as the featured cigar for this show, I would have probably put the cigar down under normal circumstances. And so, as you know, Elon Musk is trying to get people to Mars. And you know, I was watching this video of Elon, and he's kind of funny in this respect, that like he's kind of very pragmatic, right? He's very much like he's in this video, he's talking about Mars, his program for Mars, and he's like, yeah, a bunch of people will probably die. I mean, you know, it makes sense. I mean, flying people to space is a very dangerous proposition. And then you're sending them to a world hundreds of thousands of miles away. They may not return, and the landscape of Mars is super harsh. Like, you can't live there. Like, you saw The Martian with that guy, with Matt Damon. You can't live on that surface. You're in trouble. You don't have potatoes. You're in big trouble. All right, so even though we had that brief moment of happiness, man, it's dying again. Holy moly. This has been difficult. Okay, so also here's something else. Here's something interesting. Microsoft, after 15 years, has decided that it's now time to retire the Calibri font, the default font in Microsoft Word, or in Windows, and now they're asking for the public to weigh in on what font should replace it. So I thought I'd bring that up here so that you could see it. Here we are. These are the 5 fonts that you can choose. There's Bierstadt, Grandview, Seaford, Schiena, and Tenorite. So these are the different fonts. What they're looking for is something that's kind of neutral, kind of simple, and it's kind of pleasant to the eyes. And so these are what's available. So you can go, you can go online. Oh, here it is. On social media, at Microsoft 365. You can send your thoughts in and tell them, hey, I like this one or I don't like that one. However, things like Comic Sans will not be considered. So those jokers who want Comic Sans, Chuck Duster, Party-let, no, they're not going to allow that. Man, this thing has gone out again. Good Lord. All right, let's try it again. So evidently also in Germany, they are investigating an anti-lockdown group, these people that are fighting against the pandemic lockdown, because they have ties to extremist terrorists. So basically, Germans are saying these anti-lockdown people are terrorists, which they probably are. And in other German-related news, up in Milwaukee, or Wisconsin, evidently Aaron Rodgers wants to get out of Green Bay. After all this time, he's probably got tired of being so cold. All right, that looked relit again. we're just fighting this thing, fighting. Have you guys been participating in this thing called Clubhouse? I finally got on the Clubhouse. A friend of mine invited me to come, and I've been going through it. And if you're not familiar, Clubhouse is this new social media thing where it's all audio based. So basically, you're just kind of like in these rooms where people are talking about topics, and you're listening to these people talk about things, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fascinating. I'm not really sure exactly how you're supposed to use it or how I'm supposed to use it. But I was thinking maybe we should start like maybe a coffee club room where we talk about coffee, maybe even cigars. So if you're using Club Room, let me know. How are you using it? I'm interested to know because I don't really know if I understand how to use it. And in the television front, I don't know if you saw they had the finale for, what is it called? For All Mankind, that show on Apple TV about the alternative space race where basically the premise behind the whole series is that the Russians landed on the moon first. So it's this whole new space race. Everything is kind of different. Like Reagan became president in 1976. John Lennon is still alive. And we've got massive space program going on where we have a base on the moon. We fought Russians. We've killed Russians on the moon. They've killed some of our people. It's kind of fascinating. So now we went through the first series was we just finished season 2. Season 1 was set more in the 60s, a little bit in the 70s, and then we jumped to the 80s. And then at the very end of this season, now we're jumping to 1995. So it's going to be, I think it'll be kind of interesting. We evidently avoided having another nuclear attack. Like one of the interesting things I thought in the finale was those of us who grew up in the 80s, there was always that threat of nuclear holocaust, right? Like I was one that was kind of scared of that, and but in the show they actually had a point where they reached a point of like DEFCON 2 where they actually set off all the air raid sirens and people were like hiding out in their fallout shelters, and man, it was kind of stressful actually. And I was like thinking, wow, I'm glad we never reached that point in our timeline. All right, so we're here, almost to the end. It's been a battle. I have to say it's been a battle, sadly. The Emperor's cut. It's like we're fighting the Emperor himself. So we go through these spots. Like right now, smoking nice. So, like I said, the first third, if we recall, acrid, bitter. Then right at the end of the first third, moving into the second third, it's smoothened out, lost the acridity, got some nice, like, citrusy, acidic notes, and then just became a battle. Like, it just wanted to die and, like, fight, and became hot and burnt and, like, singeing the tongue with heat. And we spent the whole second third doing that, battling that. Then into the last third, it kind of got a little bit nice for a few moments, and then suddenly battle again. Now the battle's over, and, like, it's smoking again. But it's been a rough. Sadly to say, it's been a rough smoke. Rusty's asking, oops. Rusty's, I'm afraid to ask the burning question, and no pun intended. Yes. Oh, I know, the burning question. The burning question, would I buy it again? You know what, here's the thing. So, like, there's so much battle that's gone on in this cigar tonight that, I would have to say that maybe this battle has been precipitated just by, like, maybe the anomaly in the cigar, right? Because it's a handmade cigar, invariably there's going to be some kind of problem in one of the sticks. Maybe this is just one of those sticks. So you know what? I would be open to trying it again, at least one more time, and to see if there's, you know, maybe you know, to see the second time around, will the experience be the same or will it be better? So I would be open to trying it again. So yeah, I'd buy another one just to see if we could get through something and find something more exciting. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. So we're really coming to the end. I mean, we're only at hour 31, and it feels like it's been a long smoke. And you know, the nice thing is that it's at a $11 price point, so it's getting up there, right? Like I've said in the past, like for me, $12 is kind of like that threshold that it's like, ooh, we're below that 11. 11's still kind of a lot, you know. Is it? If it could perform like there's been spurts where it's been nice. If that's indicative of how a whole cigar could be, that could be enjoyable. That could be worth doing it again. But if I got the second one and it was this battle, I'd be very disappointed. Because then it'll be indicative, maybe there's more going on here. The coffee itself, this Fazenda Morofeo Natural, like I said, it's a soft coffee. It's got coffee notes. It's a relatively neutral, kind of nondescript coffee, good for blending. Not really an exciting coffee, just, you know, something solid and accessible. Relatively clean. There's no real defects in the coffee, so it's not really offensive. But it's not necessarily exciting either. It's not one you're like, I'm going to have more of that. All right. All right, no more battling. No more battling. We're going to put it down. We've got here. We're pretty much at the end, you know. We're going to put that down because, like I said, sadly it's just been a battle the whole smoke, and when you have to battle a cigar the entire time, that's always a bit disappointing. So I have to say the Emperor's Cut was this particular stick was a bit disappointing. You know, it maybe not as bad as that Rocky Patel Marieva experience where it burned through the side and we really put it down really early. But it's also, I can't say it's better because there was a lot of battle. So that's kind of it. Yep. But so next week, remember that on May 6th, we are going to have Michael King. He's going to be on the show with the Aganorsa Leaf. The Aganorsa Royal, I want to say Royal Leaf Reserva. Oh gosh. It's basically these cigars, the Royal Leaf. Oh gosh, now I'm all like messed up. The Reserva Leaf Robusto is a cigar that's released only to a certain amount of retailers around the country, and Rahul is one of them at Tobacco Leaf. And you know, I was thinking early on when I was talking to Michael about this a couple months ago, I was thinking about one of the other Aganorsa Leaf cigars, and he was like, you know, let's do the Rare Leaf Reserva is what it's called, and because it is one of the more limited release cigars that they have, and he had thought that would be the really good one. So again, Rahul has these packs. They're $15 a piece if you go in and pick it up, or $23 shipped anywhere in America. We're going to be smoking the Rare Leaf Reserva Robusto next week, as well as the 2 tasting sticks of the two different types of leaf that Aganorsa built their reputation on. One's from Jalapa and one's from Esteli. So that should be a really interesting experience, really good way to get into understanding cigars a little bit more. And Michael's going to take us on a whole tour of that and guide us as we smoke. So be sure to tune in for that. That'll be next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, here on the onocoffee channel here on YouTube. So please tune in for that. And yeah, I guess that's going to be it for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm sorry that it's a bit shorter. Unfortunately, the Emperor's Cut Natural Pleasure Gran Robusto wasn't so pleasurable tonight. Hopefully we'll get a chance to try it again and see if it can be a lot better. Live up to the expectation. But thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you taking the time. We're going to see you again next week, here, 8 p.m., Thursday, May 6th. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great evening.